Hey guys, Jerry from Showtime Audio. So we have Mr. Morthy's 2025 Lexus ES350 Luxury Edition. So this has the Mark Levinson system, but it does not sound fantastic. Especially the client has a particular type of music that he listens to, and in this vehicle, that music sounds horrible. Now, he also went from a 7 Series with 39 speakers, it had the full immersive sound, to this one, which is only 12 speakers, the Mark Levinson 12 speaker system. So obviously there's a lot less speakers, a lot less amplification, a lot less processing, right? So what we ended up doing is we did a full Helix system in here. So all the speakers are changed and are completely active. We're running a Helix DSP as well as a match monoblock amp, a 10-inch ported enclosure, and 8-inch woofers in the doors. All of it is active, all of it is plug and play. We didn't modify any of the existing wiring. We didn't modify any of the existing wiring. We didn't modify any of the existing mounting locations. So if the client ever gets rid of the car, we can literally return it back to stock. We also did sound deadening. So we did a Tesla for this client 5 years ago. He actually reminded me. We did it in his Tesla because his Tesla was too loud. You know, people are always like, how is that possible? Well, when you don't have the motor, you can hear every creak and noise and buzz that usually the motor would mask, right? So he still has that vehicle, has like 100,000 miles on it, he said, and it's still amazing. So we ended up doing deadening on this vehicle. Now on this vehicle, it made a huge difference. So you can hear it thud, and then, I mean, you can hear how much of a difference. And we have we'll show you some video with the door skins off. Now we did our stage 3. So our stage 3 is the inside of the outer skin, outside of the inner skin, and inside of the door panel. And one of the big things you'll notice is that the doors are heavy. Like, I mean, it definitely adds some mass to the door, but now the door shuts solid. And when you're in the cabin, it just makes it super, super quiet. The other giant benefit of that is if the vehicle is quieter, your stereo technically will sound louder because you're not fighting the road noise. Also, when you're on the cell phone, you don't have to yell or scream because you're trying to overpower the noise that's coming in through the doors and, you know, through the vehicle itself. And then lastly is it acts as an insulator. So think about it as it keeps the car cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. So it has a lot of benefits, but the main one being is that it also creates an enclosure, especially this one. It has an 8-inch sub in the door. So an 8-inch driver, I mean, it's a big driver. By deadening it, we create an enclosure, which makes it have much more impact than it would normally have. And so again, this is the luxury edition. Now, a lot of times it's like, what's the luxury edition? So it's a Lexus ES350, but it's a Lexus 350 luxury edition. So what that basically means is if you look, it's just a higher end leather. The trim is just much better. So if you look at the stitching, the fit, the finish, the feel of everything, you can tell it's of higher quality. Another thing that is typically is the upgrade in the technology. So larger screen, the premium audio stereo, a bunch of other creature comforts like, you know, heads-up display, and then also a bunch of exterior features. So like the color is a really beautiful color on this vehicle. It has some trim work, body work that makes it really stand out. So it's not only is it a Lexus, but it gives it a feel of an even higher vehicle. So one of the main things in this vehicle is that you can't tell. I mean, it looks stock, right? So we kept all the stock speaker locations and we actually upgraded. So, and we'll show you a little bit. The factory driver is technically like a 3.5. And what we ended up doing is we ended up having to make some custom brackets, but we ended up going with a 4-inch coaxial. So the stock speakers are 3.5-inch coaxials, and the aftermarket speaker is a 4-inch coaxial. Now you would think, okay, that's not that big of a difference, but the larger the driver, the more information we can get out of it. Because basically as the driver increases in size, it's able to play more of the spectrum of music, right? So a 3.5 and a 4 doesn't seem like a big difference, but it definitely makes a difference. In this vehicle, there's 7 of these 3.5s, now 4-inch. So there's 3 on the dash, 2 on the front doors, and 2 on the rear doors. So for a total of 7 4-inch coaxes. We have the 2 8s in the front doors, and then a 10-inch stub in the trunk. The factory vehicle came with a 10-inch in the rear deck in what's called infinite baffle. Basically, it's using the trunk as an enclosure. Now that works, but the bass is not very tight or very defined. It's a little sloppy, and depending on what you play, it's kind of limited. By doing a physical enclosure, it makes a big difference. Now, we also did the deadener, right? So, you know, we talk about one of the main reasons to do the deadener, especially on a vehicle like this, is if you have an 8-inch woofer in the door, you're replacing it with an aftermarket 8-inch. We're putting a ton more power to it. These doors weren't designed even for the factory upgraded stereo. They buzz, they rattle, they do all kinds of craziness. Imagine once you put an 8-inch aftermarket driver and feed it a ton of power. These doors are gonna buzz and rattle like you wouldn't believe. So by doing the deadener, our stage 3, we ensure as much as possible that we can eliminate the rattles. Now, it's still a car, there's still moving parts, so there's still certain things that you cannot get rid of, basically no matter what, unless you were, say, lose a handle, but obviously you need that to get in and out of the car. So, but we can get rid of 99% of it. And what you do here is, usually most cars is not audible. Like the stereo is physically going to be louder or more impressive than the buzz would ever be. So typically we install a bass knob. We like the ability to be able to control it on the fly. Yes, you can do it from the deck. We like the ability to be able to just grab it quickly and adjust it per song, because some songs have more bass, some songs have less bass. So you want to be able to do it quickly. The other advantage of this controller is we're able to do 3 presets. So we did the first preset, which is our standard preset, time alignment, set to like the brightest, the crispest, the sharpest possible. And then we did the second preset, same thing, but we kind of tapped down the highs a little bit. So some music, especially the music that the client listens to, is really bright. And so he wants to be able to switch it. So for those songs, the brightness is not overpowering. And then lastly, we did a third preset, which is no time alignment. People say, well, why would you do that? So no time alignment is definitely gonna be louder and sounds more dispersed. Like it sounds, the way we usually explain it is, do you want a concert or a club? So in a concert, you go to a concert, all the music is in essence coming from the stage, right? But if you go to a club, the music is coming from all around you, right? And the club is typically louder because you have music coming from all around. In a concert, it's more focused. You can pick out the instruments. You can pick out the singer, obviously. And so we ended up giving the client the option of both, because some people prefer concerts, some people prefer clubs. And this gives them the ability to do both. So now, the other thing is the client had a particular, and this, I love this. So the client brought us, he has a USB thumb drive with music. Now, this is Indian music, and a lot of the music is very old music. So it's like some of it's from the 60s, some of it's, you know, he's got some from the 60s, 80s, and the recordings were not that great. Now, the USB, he does have them on FLAC files. So they're actually FLAC files. How he found FLAC files of this music, I don't know, but you know, it's good to start with a good reference. Now, with the factory stereo though, it's bad because the factory is EQing for their not so great speakers and the limitations of their not so great speakers. And so the music just sounds really bad on this particular stereo. Now, if you played something a little bit more modern, the stereo in this vehicle actually sounds pretty good. But with the type of music that the client is listening to, it sounds brutal. It just sounded real tinny, real sharp, real in the center, no separation. It was just bad. No matter what we did as far as turning off surround, turning off, adjusting it, it just wasn't good. Now with the DSP, we're able to tailor it to his music and the type of music that he listens to, right? Because the original stereo is tuned to, let's say, some general music, and it's also tuned to the limitations of their not so great speakers, right? An amplifier. But with the ability to add aftermarket speakers, aftermarket amplifier, and do all our own tuning, we're able to tailor it to the car, to the client, and to the client's music collection. So this way he gets the most out of that stereo system. So one of the other things with this vehicle is it's very complicated system. So it has a ton of channels and there's a ton of processing. They're using all kinds of things like multiple all-pass filters. I mean, probably the most I've seen in a car. More and more companies are starting to use these all-pass filters because it's a way for them to cheat and, in their eyes, make the car sound better and kind of hide and mask the limitations of their speakers, right? So in order for us to make a better stereo, we have to remove all that. So we have to kind of compensate and remove all that. The nice thing about the Helix processor in this case, it allows us to go in there and help us change all that. And luckily we have a lot of great partners that help us out. With technology nowadays, they can remote in and help us adjust it. Let's say if we run into an issue or something that we've never done, right? Let's say we've built a lot of stereos. It's probably the first one we've built for this type of music, right? So there's definitely some intricacies and things that we have to do differently that we wouldn't do in, let's say, a traditional stereo. All right, and as far as the enclosure goes, we ended up going with this Helix downfiring 10-inch. You know, we're a big proponent of the downfiring enclosures. So this gives us a ton of bass, doesn't take up a lot of space. And like always, if you want to, you can still unplug it and remove the entire enclosure if you needed the extra space for whatever reason. Right, and if you want to see all the behind the scenes, keep watching. All right, so we're running a Helix V18 as well as an Up1 FX. The important part is, so we sourced this harness, and again, technically does not work for this vehicle. So another one of those cases where a lot of the manufacturers share plugs, but they're not pinned the same, they're not set up the same. So even though it's the same housing and it has maybe the same number of pins, or sometimes it doesn't, it's missing pins, but we can repurpose it or remake it. So what we ended up doing is we bought this harness, and it's awesome because it does plug in. So it allows us to do our input and output. I don't know if you can see that, but Hondo put white heat shrink and labeled every single both input and output. Now the nice thing is this harness was kind of just the right length. And so what he ended up doing was, oh, actually it's on this side. So he made this connector. So what he did is we'll show you, we have all the pins and the tools, and he repinned it all and then reconfigured the whole connector. So now this is 100% input output, a plug and play harness for this Lexus, which technically doesn't exist. There is no plug and play harness for this vehicle. There is now, you know, so after a lot of work, plug and play, there's a harness, right? And then as you can see, he's setting up the amplifier, all the RCAs, labeled all the speaker connections, all your power, everything is labeled. And then he's got the bass amp set up, same thing, everything is braided. And all this is gonna live next to the factory amplifier under the seat, and this is gonna live on the other side under the seat. So we're gonna have a full system, tons of output, and able to do this entire car. Right. So this is the factory driver. Now this is the insane part, right? So it's a coaxial. So see, this is a 3.5. It goes all the way to the edge. This is the tweeter, this little thing in the center. Now, this is solid plastic. So the only sound is coming out of the tweeter and this little tiny space right here. So in a way, this speaker is technically smaller than a 3.5. Even though it's a 3.5, that's a 2-inch, because they're restricting the sound to come out of this 2-inch opening. So there's just only so much information you're gonna get out of that space. Now, this is our new driver. I mean, our tweeter is 1.5. It's almost the size of this opening, right? This is 2-inch, this is 1.5. But our driver is 4-inch, right? So this is their driver, 3.5. And then that's the aftermarket driver, right? And then again, the nice thing is, we'll show you, but we made plugs for everything. So no modifying of the vehicle. So if you ever go to reverse it, all of it plugs back in. These are your door subs. So it's weird. It's like an 8x9. So it's quite a big speaker for factory. So it's not quite, but it's 8x9. So for a factory vehicle, that's actually pretty decent. Now, the only thing is, it is paper and plastic. I mean, there's no magic to it. The only advantage is obviously the size of the driver, so we'll get some sound out of it. And then it actually has a decent magnet for an aftermarket speaker, a decent motor. And then lastly, this is the factory sub. But again, it's paper. It's just paper and plastic. And even though, again, it's decent for being a stock sub, but compared to the enclosure with the amount of power that we're running, this can never compare. So these will drop into the doors. They just bolt up, and we use these brackets that they come with. They're nice because they're cammed, and you just remove the tabs and it'll bolt up like it's factory. On the front, we did have to laser, and we did laser a driver and a passenger. So it had to move slightly in order to fit in that space, because obviously the dash wasn't designed for a 4-inch driver, but the bigger the driver we can get in there, the better sound we can get, the more frequencies we can get out of it. And then we have the center. So this will be the center channel, so which is also lasered and it's also been adjusted in order to fit the right way. And then we have the i7 subs. I mean, look at these things. They're ridiculous with their flex mount brackets. These things are amazing. I mean, look at this. It is solid when I tell you. And if you can see it, it's designed around the driver so that it literally drops in and bolts into this housing and then bolts up to the car. They also flare the back end, which helps with the sound. It helps with the back wave of the speaker and helps it sound a lot better. So we love building them in-house, but this is like amazing, you know? So if we don't have to make it, you know, we don't, you know, if we can order it and it's a good quality, solid product, which this is, we're gonna use it. Now, what we also did is we made harnesses. So we're real big on plug and play, but we made them. So what we did is we bought these Toyota plugs that fit the vehicle, and then we're using, the nice thing about these speakers is they have a flex wire system. In other words, mated. So normally it's this, but we changed it. So now it's Toyota. So now all the speakers are Toyota plugs. So we're not cutting anything in the vehicle. Everything will literally plug in as if it came with the car. The subs and all the other speakers will just plug in as if they came with the vehicle. So we also did that for the amp harness. We made our own amp harness so that it plugs in as well. This way, if the client ever decides to get rid of the vehicle, we can literally put the car 100% back to stock. Here's some video, but Hondo made a bracket and bolted the Helix amplifier under this seat. And we have the Up One Effects, the bass amplifier under that seat. And as you can see, the wiring, it's ran with all the original wiring. We'll show you under the hood real quick. And it's all mounted, and we're using the plugs like we talk about. So he's currently making the patterns for everything. So we love to make patterns so that we get the most amount of coverage, and it fits really nice. We're not a big fan of the whole just cutting strips and kind of piecing it together. We want it to look uniform and look like it came with the car. So if you take a peek, see how it covers. I mean, literally, we have about as much coverage as possible. I'll actually show you real quick. This is a good demo. So I'm gonna put the mic in and tap this side, and then we'll do the other side so that you can see the difference. He's currently gonna do the other side, and then we're gonna work on stage 2. So stage 2 is this skin, which he'll be doing next. But again, also, same thing. See the wiring? Runs with the factory harness, looks as if it came with the car. Okay. All right, so just check out Hondo's handiwork, right? So just absolutely gorgeous. This is the stock amplifier, lives under this cover. So if you pop these little tabs out, we'll show you some video. This is the factory JBL amplifier. This is our new Helix amplifier. So it's a DSP amplifier, and we made plug and play harnesses. So if you saw, we actually pinned our own harness. So they make a harness that's for Toyotas, but not for this vehicle. It's for Toyotas and Lexus, but not this particular car, 2025. But Hondo repinned it, reconfigured it, added terminals, made a new plug, and now it's completely plug and play for this vehicle. So if the client ever decides to, it's literally unplug it, plug the stock harness back in, put all the stock speakers back in, never know we were there. So just to show you, look at the amount of deadener. I mean, this little patch, technically behind the sub, because I'm sure it rattled. So they're like, okay, let's do the bare minimum to stop the rattle, right? And that's it. And if you see our version, I mean, you know, we have a ton of coverage, basically as much coverage as we can get. So we're gonna do a quick test, right? So that's the, you know, that's this side, the treated side, that's just stage one. Tell me, I mean, I know you can hear that. I hope you can hear that. I mean, it is massively different. It's not like a small difference. It is a massive difference. A lot of times you hear, I don't need deadener. Yeah, yes, you do. You know, because it helps in multiple things. Not only does it quiet the car, so therefore your stereo doesn't have to be as loud. Your stereo will actually sound louder because you're competing. There's less competition from noise in the car. Like, you know, so if there's less outside noise, then inside is going to sound louder, right? It's also more comfortable. It's easier to talk on the phone because you're not fighting the noise, and it improves the sound. So by doing the deadener, especially stage 2 and 3, you create an enclosure which makes the sound better for especially this. It's got an 8-inch woofer in the door. So imagine, I mean, the amount of bass we're going to get out of that is ridiculous. Check out Hondo's amazing work. Look at this. Isn't this just ridiculous? It's just sexy, for lack of a better word. It looks amazing, right? So he covered, the factory deadening is only a bunch of really small panels. So he covered as much surface area as he could in the trunk, focusing on the wheel wells, which is where a lot of your noise comes in, because obviously that's where the wheels are spinning and all the dirt and rocks and vibration and things are getting kicked up into the wheel well, which gets transferred into the vehicle. By deadening it, obviously we make the vehicle so that it's harder for it to resonate, but also it's like a barrier layer, actually 3 barrier layers between the sheet metal and the cab. So we also did floor. Floor is very, very difficult because typically you have to remove the entire interior, right? So he did the entire under the carpet, or under the seat, I should say. Now, the reason these panels are important is because this sheet metal, even though it's structurally strong, it's the closest to the ground, right? So it's the closest to the noise. And that, again, can transfer vibrations and sound into the cabin. If you look, so he did the floor, the hump, and then if we move the front seats and under the driver, floor mats, firewall, again, focusing on, here's the wheel well is directly in front of this, right? So we want to cover as much of this area as possible. So this is a luxury vehicle, right? It's the Lexus, but it's the premium luxury edition. So it has better fit and finish, better materials, better creature comforts, right? But he also wants it to sound and feel like a premium car where it's super, super quiet. This will definitely help with that. But the other advantage is it will also help our stereo. So there's 2 ways to make a stereo louder. One is by adding more speakers, gear, power to raise the volume. Second is by lowering the ambient noise or volume of the environment. So if the environment, the car, is quieter, our stereo will seem louder. So we can either add power or quiet the car. The net result is it's still a louder stereo. All right, and then you know we're a big fan of breakers, right? So Hondo made a bracket, it's mounted, everything is dressed with the braiding and the heat shrink so that you know where it belongs. And then even this, I don't know if we talk about this, but Hondo physically bends the terminal so that we can still get the cover on as if it's factory. So you don't see anything, but it's really simple. You press this button and that breaks the connection. So if it ever needs to be serviced, you press these two buttons, the system is completely disconnected from the car. So if you ever have an issue, you can press that disconnected and be like, okay, now solve the real problem, because the stereo is in essence completely disconnected. Now we can figure out what's actually going on.
Visit our website at showtimeaudiochicago.com.